Loch Ness Monster is real. Reports of the Loch Ness Monster date back almost 1,500 years, and by the 20th century, increasing reports led to massive public interest in Nessie. In 1933, a witness named George Spicer reported a sighting where he and his wife saw this large-bodied creature in the middle of the road near the water. It had a long neck, and he thought it looked prehistoric before it shuffled off into the loch. And this is the surgeon's photo, taken in 1934 by Robert Kenneth Wilson. This is perhaps the most famous picture of Nessie, however, it was determined to be a hoax. One theory suggests that if there is some unknown large creature in Loch Ness, it could be part of a population of plesiosaur-like animals that somehow survived after the dinosaurs went extinct. But it's thought that plesiosaurs lived in saltwater, and Loch Ness is freshwater. However, in 2022, fossils of a plesiosaur were discovered in an ancient riverbed in Morocco, which happened to be a freshwater river. It doesn't prove the existence of Nessie, but it is interesting that these animals could live in fresh water. And even though massive search efforts have been conducted to find Nessie over the years, the evidence has always been inconclusive. That is until 2020, when some very compelling sonar data was collected by Ronald McKenzie while conducting a tour of the loch with his catamaran. This data showed some 33-foot long creature swimming in the depths of the loch. And even though skeptics think that Nessie is just a hoax or a fish, with recent evidence and continued sightings to this day, many people believe that.
How are people this dense? He said faking the moon landing back in '69 would require humanoid robots better than we have today. Then he talks about the retro reflector the astronauts unloaded to verify that they walked on the moon. They were reflecting off of the moon's surface in 1962 before anybody went to the moon. And here's a press release of them practicing collecting moon rocks, the scene of the moon. All you have to do is do this exact thing, just go to a big dark desert or a bigger airplane hangar, plus practical effects. This is practical effects. This is practical effects, believe it or not. And this was 1968, practical effects. And they still do practical effects today. Think of how all the space movies were made back in the day. They'll sell you a little model of the lander you can build yourself. Then here's some today's digital effects. Right here too. That looks pretty familiar, doesn't it? It would not have been that hard to fake a moon landing in '69. And honestly, that's why it's under so much scrutiny, is because it was such a bad attempt. I mean, it was very obvious. That's why the original footage got passed straight on to the Knoll brothers, the creators of Photoshop. That's why most of the pictures you see today went through Photoshop. I don't know what all this garbage is about humanoid robots, but really, people?
Dragons are real, and they've been trying to tell us this whole time. Y'all motherfuckers gonna love this one. At least that's what some people claim, and we may have even found actual proof in 2024. Even though in 1841 we already technically confirmed their existence, we just called them dinosaurs. As always, just a theory, but anyone with more than half a brain cell knows that. Common history tells us the most recent dinosaurs that roamed the earth went extinct around 65 million years ago. So why do we see them in countless ancient drawings and artifacts just a couple thousand years old? Way after they allegedly went extinct, but also before we started discovering their bones. We didn't even officially know what dinosaurs were until 1824, and they weren't even named dinosaurs until 1841. Before then, we had a different name for them: dragons. Nearly every culture of our past had their own version of a scaly, fire-breathing, flying lizard that brave warriors would face to protect their land. And we see these dino dragons in numerous Neolithic cave drawings around the world, painted into rock walls thousands of years old, well before we ever even knew they were a thing. Petroglyphs in Havasupai Canyon, Arizona, natural bridges, Utah, and even up around Lake Superior in Canada. And this is just the tip. I think you know where we're going. Over to Angkor Wat in Cambodia, we see more carvings of what looks like a stegosaurus. Carlisle Cathedral in England has etchings of animals unlike we've ever seen. Down in Australia, the Aborigines had this painting of a creature they hunted, and it don't look like anything I know. The Yuan Diao dragon figure from the Shang dynasty about 2000 BC, which looks almost exactly like a T-Rex. And I mean, ancient China is just filled to the brim with bronze statues thousands of years old that resemble our extinct lizard pals. Here's a Mesopotamian jasper cylinder seal from the Uruk period about 3500 BC, and if that ain't a long neck, then I don't know what to tell you. Mind you, these are all several hundred, if not thousands of years old, and they're all over the ancient world. Like, are those humans riding dinosaurs in a 16th century painting? And who can forget about the Acambaro figurines, a collection of 30,000 minifigures uncovered in Mexico of dinosaurs and humans riding them. Initial dating analyses estimated them to be about 4,500 years old, but follow-up stated they were made in the 1930s. So they can quickly dismiss them as a hoax, debunked and move on, but evidence kept on coming. The Ica stones, a collection of more than 15,000 engraved stones which depict What's that look like to you? Discovered in Peru, said to be over 1,000 years old, and again later claimed a hoax by the one who found them, some say out of force to avoid imprisonment. Is it possible that humans had contact, or at the very least knowledge of dinosaurs in ancient times? Absolutely not, unless they're not as old as we think they are. In 2003, a researcher, Dr. Mary Schweitzer, found a T-Rex femur that was so big they had to snap it in half for transport, something they usually don't do. They do that, take it back to the lab, and inside the bone they find preserved red blood cells. They couldn't believe it. Red blood cells don't last very long, and soft tissue was thought to deteriorate even under the best of conditions within 1 million years. Never mind over 68 million years, even inside of a bone. They concluded it must be a new preservation method they were previously unaware of, which could be the case, calm the f down. But since then, they started cracking open more dinosaur bones, finding veins and even soft organic tissue that was stretchy and had an odor, which led some to believe that it could be possible that maybe some dinosaurs were around much more recently than we thought. Before we knew what dinosaurs were, there was a different type of giant reptile that was found in many oral traditions and stories: dragons. Around the same time period in China, South America, Africa, Rome, Aboriginal Australia, we get legends and images of humans fighting off giant scaly winged creatures that flew and breathed fire. All the way up until medieval times, tales of dragons all around the world. So did everyone just coincidentally come up with the exact same mythical creature, or did they actually see it? And the ancient Chinese especially had a huge obsession with dragons as well. Just have a look at the Chinese zodiac. Have you ever thought, why does it have 11 real animals and then they randomly decided to throw in just one mythical creature, the dragon? Having 12 real animals makes more sense to me. Turns out they might have been onto something, because we may have just found the fossil of one in the heart of China. So the potential reason dragon bones might be so rare is because dragons could fly, just like birds. Birds have extremely light, low density bones that don't fossilize very easily, and it's very likely that dragons would have had the same. Until recently, this was announced: discovered fossilized remains of a 5-meter long reptile in southern China. Officially called Dinocephalosaurus orientalis, it has been dubbed the Chinese dragon fossil, and is unlike any dinosaur fossil we've ever found. Although it's said to be 240 million years old, that's also exactly what they said about the dinosaurs. Did humans coexist with dinosaurs, and were dragons just a rare species of dinosaur that we hunted into extinction for the safety of our future?
Why is no one talking about this conspiracy theory? Andrew Dawson was a TikToker hunting giants. He would go giant hunting, right? One day, he spotted a giant standing on top of a mountain. He's with a friend, zooms in on it. All of his giant hunting wishes come true until the video goes viral and the CIA starts stalking him. He makes a video. I was stopped by the CIA. Days go by after the CIA approached him, and he continues hunting for giants. So this was April of 2022.
I just got stopped by the CIA agent.
He continues his hunting for UFOs and giants, paranormal. Then at nighttime, he sees a parked CIA agent's car. So he records.
The guy's here again.
It was the same CIA agent as before. The CIA agent is directing traffic and tells him to turn his car around.
What's going on?
Road's closed. Turn around.
Really?
Yeah, man, just turn around, please.
So he's bummed out, but he turns around. 3 days later, the same car is outside of his house. So this was the 14th when he was told to turn around. Now look. On the 17th, it's out front of his house again. The car peels off. So Andrew takes a break from posting for almost a month. And a month goes by, he's scared, but he wants to keep posting. He makes a video.
You might not see me post ever again.
After that post, he makes one final video in May. He sees some weird utility vehicle on the same mountain where he saw the giant. This was May of 2022. And then he goes missing. And then his obituary is released July 1st of 2022. Not even 2 months later.
This young boy was born again. This is the incredible true reincarnation story that's going to absolutely blow your mind. This guy right here is Carl, and when he was young, some pretty insane things were going on. We know kids always have an obsession with the army, the war, planes, guns, all of that kind of stuff. I mean, pretty normal, right? But not Carl. This was a whole different level. From the age of about 2 or 3, before he even went to school, before he went to preschool, he hadn't read any books or anything, but he knew everything about World War II. How? He could name every gun, he could name specific battles, he could even name people who apparently were in the war as well with him. Now one day, him and his father went to an air show where there were some planes flying above, and he literally pointed up to the plane, named it exactly the model and everything of that plane, and said, "I used to fly those in the war." What? This went on and on and on, constantly, him just saying how he used to be in the war, how he was a fighter pilot for the Germans, and knew absolutely everything. Now one day the family were on holiday in Germany and actually went to visit the war graves. The young boy just ran straight over to one of the graves, started crying, and collapsed on the floor right next to it. He looked up at his parents and said, "That was me." They researched the name, and sure enough, it was a German fighter pilot who died on the date that he said he died, and in the exact plane that he was talking about. Crazy coincidence, or something more going on?
Colonel Nell, David Grush's boss, just dropped an absolute bombshell on the world. Take a listen.
And so, Carl, here's the million-dollar question. Do you believe that a higher form of non-human intelligence has visited this planet?
Right. So, non-human intelligence exists. Non-human intelligence has been interacting with humanity. This interaction is not new, and it's been ongoing. And there are unelected people in the government that are aware of that.
And so, Carl, that is quite a bold statement. I'm wondering, and I'm curious, how confident are you that that is true?
There's zero doubt.
And Carl, what evidence have you seen? What was the moment where you developed this level of conviction? Because what you're saying is extremely consequential and very important. And I know that a lot of people here, even perhaps, may not believe that statement.
Right. Well, probably a better way to ask that is, how can the folks in the audience come to the, a common understanding of what this phenomenon is? And so there's sort of two tracks here. One is from first principles, and another is actually from the data. So let's take a look at the data. So we can look at some folks that have very high level access to information, like Paul Hellyer, who is the defense chief for Canada, has come out and said the same thing. We can look at Ham Eshed, the head of Israel's, or former head of Israel's Space Force, has said the same thing. Chris Mellon, Deputy Assistant Secretary for Intel, SAPCO, has essentially said the same thing. Lou Elizondo has said the same thing. David Grush has said the same thing. David Grush cleared for presidentially level material. So you're looking at people that are in a position to know this, and they're telling you the same thing. You could take a look at the Gang of Eight in the Senate and in Congress. So there's two members of the Gang of Eight, Marco Rubio and Senator Chuck Schumer, that signed up to the UAP disclosure amendment last year that basically said they're not being told the truth and we need to push forward on that. So that's sort of an overview of some of the data. From a first principles standpoint, what's so unusual about this realization? There's billions of stars in the galaxy. Life here evolved in 500 million years, which is basically a blink of an eye. We've found planets around every star that we've looked at. It's likely that the universe is full of life.
Unbelievable news. If you guys are excited to see the rest of this video, pop on over to my YouTube channel, stop in or drop in. I'd love to have you over there. The rest of this whole interview is up on my channel, so get over there right now.
From 1948 to 1973, for 25 years, the U.S. economy was so amazing that you could conceivably get a job. I mean a regular job. I don't mean an amazing job. And the pay would be so high and the benefits so amazing that you could not only afford to buy a house and feed your family, you might be able to send your kids to school, to college, and you might be able to retire really well. Piketty says in his book, Capital in the 21st Century, that was the only time, in fact, in human history where a person could work and make wealth. Right? Because if you look at the middle class today in the United States, they don't make wealth. They barely get by. The difference between the middle class and the lower class is that the middle class has stable housing and the lower class doesn't have stable housing. The wealth distance between the lower class and the middle class is negligible. It's meaningless. They're barely getting by. But for 25 years, people were prospering. And what they realize is Maslow's hierarchy of needs. If people aren't fretting about food, if they're not worried about shelter, if they're not in constant fear that the economic situation they're in will collapse, they have mind space to start to ask bigger and better questions like, wait a minute, what about civil liberties? What about civil rights? What about human rights? And the next thing you know, by 1954, 6 years into this explosive economy, we're in the middle of a revolution.
Then you have another report titled Underground Tunnels and Hybrid Breeding Programs, and you cover Phil Schneider's claims about stumbling into a network of deep underground bases with non-humans in them under Dulce, New Mexico. Phil died about a year after going on this whistleblower speaking tour, and a lot of people think what he said was just too sensational, but you go on to add that Dulce is for beings that some say live underground. It's 160 kilometers from Scientology's Trementina base, which is an underground complex they built for some reason, and it's 200 kilometers from Epstein's Zorro Ranch, which has an 8,000 square foot underground level and is said to go even deeper. And of course, Epstein talked to people about his hopes to seed the human race from this facility after a cataclysm. So more logs for the fire. Those pieces are starting to fit, wouldn't you say?
If you really want to get to the truth of the matter, you have to factor in an underground world. In my opinion, that's really what is at the heart of what's going on. Non-human manipulation. And so if that's the case, then why couldn't reptilian beings shapeshift and hide into a human form?
In a recent interview on Iconic, Juliette Bryant, who was kidnapped by Epstein for 2 years, said that she never witnessed any of the dozens of girls there being trafficked to any men other than Epstein, but she did wake up once paralyzed on a table and witnessed Epstein shapeshift into something else. Wow, wild stuff, but I love the connection.
Last night, I just had a scary, mind-blowing epiphany. Let me show you what I found. First off, this is Cancun, and all the ocean receded. The ocean receded away from the beach. Do you see this? So our oceans are acting really funny, right? I've been telling y'all we're about to have a crazy hurricane season. I didn't know why. You're about to understand just how crazy this is. This was the water temperature when we had Hurricane Katrina. I hope I'm not the only one that remembers Hurricane Katrina. That hurricane season, there was a record anomaly of heat in the water. You can see much of the waters were their record warmest, and all the water was really hot, right? It's only May, it's not even summer. Look at the record-breaking water temperatures right now. This was at the 14th of May. This is almost 10 times, I would argue 10 times as worse as what created Katrina. If you don't understand, you're going to see some crazy demolition like never before. I just had a feeling. I knew something was up. And also last night I had an epiphany on why. There's actually many variables. So for one, the sun, the heat from the sun, and the Schumann frequency, and the solar flares. That alone is playing a huge role in the weather and all these storms we're having because the energy of the earth is off the charts right now. Hence all the earthquakes and all the major crazy out of nowhere storms. And guess what? Anomalies. This is what popped in my head last night when I saw this. Not like there's already been record flooding all around the earth. Everything is adding together to create one massive superstorm. Do you remember that movie, The Day After Tomorrow? And all those megastorms all mixing into one giant storm on the earth? I'm not saying it's going to be like that, and I could be wrong. But I definitely foresee 2 hurricanes mixing into one giant hurricane hitting our coast. Let me know what y'all think in the comments. This is what Oklahoma has to look forward to on this Sunday.
This guy, he found some treasure in 1988. He figured out where this shipwreck was, and the ship was called the Ship of Gold.
Wow.
They went there and they found a lot of gold. And he sold the gold and made $52 million.
Whoa!
And then here comes the U.S. government.
They're going to tax you.
They sent him an audit and they said, we just need to know how much gold you have. And he said, no, I don't have to tell you.
Yeah.
And they're like, all right,
Jail.
you're going to jail.
No way.
They put him in jail. His sentence was 2 years, contingent on telling them, one, how much gold he had, and two, where's the shipwreck?
Why?
After the 2 years, he goes, I don't remember.
Yeah. Oh, forgot.
And they're like, okay.
Don't say it.
Yeah, I mean, he's been there for 7 years now. Yeah. And so they're holding him indefinitely.
They don't have his money though, right?
Well, I don't
was
know.
saying you're bitter as showing.
But I think it makes more sense that there's something on there that the U.S. really want. And he's just like, it would be too dangerous if the government had their hands on it.
Yeah.
So I will stay in prison.
Noble.
It's KFC's recipe.
I will stay in prison?
No.
Oh.
The recipe that's on the boat.
This boy was born again. This is Billy, who was born in the south coast of Australia. He was born back in 2015, and once he was born and started speaking, things got a bit strange. Now, we know kids say some crazy things sometimes. They read one thing, they see one thing, they exaggerate it, and, it becomes like a reality. But this? I'm not sure. So, at the age of 2, he started referring to his sons, and his parents were just like, your sons? He goes, yeah, my sons. And they were like, bit weird, but okay. But one day, he pulled out a postcard with the late Princess Diana on it. He looked at his parents and said, look, Daddy, that was when I used to be a princess. What? They lived in Australia. He'd never seen her before. It was years after she passed away. He'd never seen anything really about the royal family. He was only 3 years old. But again, he even fully described the exterior and interior of Balmoral Castle with never even hearing it. He said, yeah, I used to go here, this place here. And he fully described how it was furnished inside and everything correct. They looked it up and they were like, what? And again, even crazier, one day they were watching a documentary about the whole incident, and he looked and he said, why did they kill me that day? But if he wasn't Princess Diana, how the hell did he get all of this information at 3 years old? It's insane. But yeah, I have no idea. I'm just as confused as you are. So let me know in the comments down below your thoughts right now.
There's this frequency called IEEE 802.15.6. This wireless network is a short-range wireless communications in the vicinity of or inside a human body, but not limited to humans. It uses existing industrial, scientific, medical bands as well as frequency bands. You can connect to the human body using frequencies that is already out here. Now, if you wanted to take it a step further, people have made the arguments of advanced algorithms are the reason why you get so much specific targeted ads, or maybe your microphone is recording you secretly. I have reason to believe that these frequency machines are somehow able to penetrate your mind to such a degree and is able to feed you based on your thought patterns. Now that sounds super advanced. Well, it's the network itself, the IEEE numbers already affects you. Frequencies can still communicate with your body. It's connecting to you like how we connect to Wi-Fi. It's reading the signals from your body.
I have no idea what's going on with the weather, but I've been telling you guys thousands of times, this is not normal. This is not feet of snow. This is like 2 or 3 foot of hail. Like, what the hell is going on? Did y'all see what just happened in Ohio? 14 massive tornadoes in Ohio. I mean, the weather is on something. Something we can't say on here. The weather's on something. Some caffeine. The weather's been drinking a lot of coffee. This right here is when these weird fuzzy frequencies took these 2 storms and combined them into one big storm. Combined, compound. Look at this. Y'all, Ohio is freaking destroyed. Destroyed. Ohio, I think Nebraska, Oklahoma. Texas was just destroyed, was it not? Houston, Texas? Me and so many people have been trying to tell y'all this weather is not normal. But y'all people, man, you guys are some really, really, really deep sleepers. But one of the tornadoes literally pushed over a semi-truck. Dang.
Tonight, a dangerous tornado outbreak in Iowa, with at least a dozen reports of twisters so far today. This video was captured by a tornado chaser in Adams County, Iowa, about 100 miles southwest of Des Moines. You can see a hull ripped to shreds, debris swirling, and the devastating aftermath.
This is drone footage from WX Chasing. I'm telling you all, these storms are coming for all of us. Mark my words, 2024 is going to be the craziest freaking hurricane season you have ever seen. You think Katrina was bad. You see how the weather is right now? And by the way, it's happening all over the world.